her head?
Slightly.
Hey, it's Megan
And Sue,
the Spine Breakers, and today we are coming at you with another "If You Got It, Read It" challenge video. Yeah, like I was gonna say, I don't even know what I was gonna say.
We got there.
Update video. We got there. It's fine. We made it work.
So we did the challenge of reading the oldest book on our shelf, or the book we've owned the longest.
Yes, and I, in true Megan fashion, just kind of picked a book I'd owned for a long time because I don't know.
Believe I truly picked the book I'd owned the longest. But before we talk about those,
Yes,
we'll talk about the beer we're drinking, which is Frangelic Mountain Brown by Founders Brewing, which is a brown ale brewed with hazelnut coffee. If I can get it close enough.
rich
Sounds
girl.
yummy. Where's Founders? That's in Missouri, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't remember where though.
No, it's in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Oh shit. It's in one of our home states.
Yeah. Let's try it out.
Cheers.
There it is, nice and brown.
It smells good.
Ooh,
Oh, that's nice.
I like it. Yeah, it's pretty good.
That is really tasty.
It's like a cold brew.
Yeah, that is
Cold
great.
brew coffee.
Nice cold brew
It is
hazelnut
also
coffee.
literally a cold brew.
It is also definitely a cold brew.
Yeah, but it's good.
It's very tasty.
So, do you want to talk about your book first?
Oh,
This
boy.
time, I think I went first last time.
I need you to appreciate, I call this the plant titty book because
Look closely,
plant with titties.
and you'll see.
Yeah. So this is a book that Sue got for me. We used to buy each other ridiculous looking sci-fi novels and just like write each other notes in the front until we realized that we were like amassing too many ridiculous looking sci-fi novels. And Sue's note said, "Megan, that plant has boobs, need I say more?" Love, Sue. It takes place on the planet Ta. There's this weird plant on the planet Ta, and it gives this milk that it's called milk in the book, so I mean they're leaning into the titties thing.
Right.
And it can be used to make things like food, steel, like it's kind of like plastic. Like it can be used to make like a whole host of products. And so whoever has the plant and who has control of the plant like has economic power and has like bargaining
It's like the spice.
It's like the spice. But the plant is fickle, and she only gives her milk to people that she likes. There's like South Ta and North Ta, and like South Ta are like the barbarians, and North Ta is like this culture where there's appearance standards and like you have to look perfect and whatever, and they care a lot more about like honor and like appearances. They don't like each other, but the South Ta people have the plant and they have the power, and so they need to wage a war, but they need a warrior, and the North people have been so used to affluence for so long that they don't have any more warriors. And so there's a woman who has the ability to, Tanny is her name, and she has the ability to like project her consciousness into other people. So they send her to find a warrior's consciousness and bring his consciousness back to their planet to put into the body of one of their warriors. So she goes to Earth and grabs a dude from Earth.
Where all the great warriors are.
You know? And the one she picks is super unimpressive. And he comes and he embodies this Ta warrior's body and, you know, proceeds to do his thing. And I'm going to say, like, obviously this was published in the 70s. Yeah, 1975. So obviously it's a sexist sci-fi book, but there is like a couple of strong female characters, and I would say they do have conversations that involve not men. But I will also say that one of them, despite her strength, kind of like fawns for this like really unimpressive dude. There are also excerpts which I've marked because I would like to read a couple of them to you, if I may. So there is a scene where the man from Earth who is embodying the Ta warrior gets in a fight with his sister on Ta, and he slaps her in the face. And she says to him, "It may be a man's right to do that, but no man has ever done that to me before." And he says, "I'll do it again if it needs to be done again." And then it says, he had discovered long ago that a hard slap improved the relationship between man and woman and required less energy than a long argument. So there's, yeah.
There's that.
There is that. So the plant is a woman. And she...
Hence the titties.
And she shares consciousness with other plants around the planet. It's still her, there's just different plants, and she just kind of moves around.
Okay.
So she takes a liking to this like really unimpressive Earthman too. And it says, "Now sit down and touch me. I've missed you ever so much." He obediently knelt down and stroked her leaves in tiny nozzles, and she sighed with deep pleasure. It was disgusting to him, but what else could he do? She had been so obliging.
So she can speak to him?
Yeah, she can talk. She talks and she's horny. Like, she's super horny. So, there was another one that I wanted to read about. Okay, so he's dating, so the guy from Earth is dating a woman who is much older than him, and he's mooching off of her, basically. And he says...
Sounds like a real desirable fellow.
He's a great dude. Debbie was an absurd name for a woman of almost 50, but she adored her name as she adored everything about herself. Her figure remained firm, and her face had aged well. A bit battered, he thought, but the lines were sexy rather than repulsive.
Wow.
Aging is repulsive? Like,
yeah.
Really? But yeah, so, little sexist bits in there. There are some bits where women are very, like, strong and empowered, and at times, like, really poke fun at this dude.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's ridiculous, but obviously not, like, I wouldn't give it, like, an A+ for, like,
right.
its treatment. I'd give it maybe, like, a C. And I will say, too, like, Tanny is one of the more powerful female characters. She's the one that can project her mind.
Right.
She's banished as an outcast because she has, like, physical deformities on top. And so she's seen as, like, disgusting, and no one wants to have kids with her or,
right.
like, have sex with her.
So it seems a little similar to the chrysalids.
Very similar. But she's horny, too, so she, like, sends her consciousness into other women and, like, gets to
experience.
Run them while they're,
wow.
like, she takes over while they're having sex.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so she'll go to, like, the pillow houses and, like, embody a pillow house girl. And, like, the pillow house girl just goes away. Her consciousness, like, goes to the back seat. And Tanny gets to do her thing. But
Interesting.
you find out that her deformities are that her ass and her tits are too big.
Are you kidding?
No! That's what her
What?
Yes! They exceed acceptable size standards.
Oh my god.
So she too curvy. She too hourglassy.
Oh my goodness. So she'd like be very desirable in our society now.
And she chases the human man back to Earth. She puts her consciousness into an Earthling human and finds him and basically tells him, "We're getting married, bro." And he's like, "Ah!" But they do it anyway.
No, not your huge titties.
Don't smother me with your huge titties. But yeah,
Oh,
so
goodness.
she comes back and basically just claims him. So,
Wow.
weird book.
Sounds like a wild ride.
It was, and I will say, I was entertained, I was captivated, I was not disappointed. As far as entertainment value, I would give that book a 4 out of 5 stars. As far as like quality book, I would give it a 2 out of 5 stars. So I'll compromise with the 3.
Alright.
Yeah.
So my book's probably less exciting unless you're super into ancient Egypt, but I read The Lost Queen of Egypt by Lucile Morrison. And I've had this was deleted off of my high school library's shelf. It says Ava High School Library.
Oh.
I don't really remember getting it, but I guess I did.
It's kind of a cool copy.
Yeah, and actually this is out of print.
Oh.
So I looked online and people were selling it, even like shitty copies like this, they were selling for like $100.
Damn.
So got myself a rare book here.
Yourself
apparently.
a rare book.
But yeah, it was published in 1937, I believe. Yes. And it's historical fiction, but it does mostly involve real people that existed in ancient Egypt. She has a little note in the beginning that says, like, the only names she made up were for some of the, like, slaves and, you know, servants and people who probably wouldn't have been recorded in history.
Right.
The main character is Ongsen. I'm probably going to pronounce all these Egyptian names wrong, so I apologize in advance.
Egyptian names are hard.
But the main character is Ongsen Patin. That's her name as a child. The book starts when she's 6 years old. Later, her name is changed to Ongsenamun, which she's probably more well known in history by that name. She was the wife of the famous Tutankhamun, King Tut. So in the beginning of the story, she's 6 years old and she's, you know, the princess or whatever. I'm sure they didn't call themselves princesses, but, you know, she's the daughter of the pharaoh. But she's not first in line for the crown. She has 2 older sisters, but they both pass away at a young age. So she ends up becoming queen at like age 11,
Damn.
I think. And she marries Tutankhamun at like age 11.
God damn.
And they rule together until he dies at age 18.
So were they both 11 when they got married?
In the book they are. I think in real life...
Creepy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was, I think, normal at the time. Also,
Yeah.
they... in
Life
the
expectancy was much lower, so like, yeah.
Right. And the book definitely, like, sugarcoats some things or, like, slightly changes things to make it less
Disgusting.
creepy. Because,
Yeah.
like, in real life, she and Tutankhamun were brother and sister. They were half brother and sister, I believe. In the book, they're not actually related.
Okay.
Also, it's speculated that in real life, her first husband was actually her own father.
Oh.
I don't think they know
Girl.
for certain if that was true.
Huh.
But given that she married Tut at
11?
like age 11, she'd have to be, yeah.
Poor girl.
Gross.
Oh.
And then after King Tut died, some people think she married his successor, which was Ai, who was probably her grandfather. So lots
Poor girl.
of
Oh.
lots of incest happening in, you know, Egyptian royalty and other royalty
All
all
royalty,
over the
really,
world.
yeah.
Very, very, a lot of inbreeding.
Gotta keep those bloodlines pure.
Right. But basically, like, she's the daughter of Akhenaten? I don't know. And Queen Nefertiti. He believed in one god, Aten, so he attempted to, like, change
Okay.
the worship and everything in Egypt to be to only worship this one god. And a lot of people didn't like that. But he's depicted in the book as being like a good guy.
Okay.
So he's kind of depicted as more of a hero, and King Tut is also depicted as like a good guy. And then Ai is like the villain. But this book imagines like a much happier ending for her. But this book took me a really fucking long time to get through.
Yeah.
It, like, oh man, it was rough. But I'd say like the last third of the book I really enjoyed, and I was
Okay.
really into it.
Okay.
But the first huge chunk of it was just very boring to me, because it was just kind of like her being a little girl.
Right.
And she's very precocious, and she's kind of the type of character that you see a lot in children's books, because I think this is technically a children's book, although it's not really written like a children's book.
Right.
I'd say the beginning is maybe a little bit more so because she's like just a 6-year-old girl who's just
Not the
allowed,
queen or
who's not the queen
whatever,
yet,
yeah.
and is kind of allowed to be a child. But she's kind of the type of character that you see a lot in children's books that I always hated as a child, because I was like the opposite of that in every way. But she's like very ill-behaved. Like, I hated Ramona Quimby as a kid because I was like, she's just a little shithead.
She's crazy. Not a book, but a movie. Ferris Bueller.
Yes, I hated Ferris Bueller too.
He's
I was
an
like,
ass.
That guy's a little punk ass
He's a
kid.
little punk ass bitch. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think in some ways with like, at least with like Ramona Quimby, not so much with Ferris Bueller because I think he was just a dickhead.
No, he's a shit.
But with like Ramona Quimby, I feel like she was like everything I wanted to be as a child, but like couldn't because I was like painfully shy.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to this.
Anywho.
So in the beginning of the book, she's just kind of like being a kid, and you're wondering, you kind of assume that she's gonna probably become queen, but you know, because one of her sisters is ill, and her family has a lot of illness, probably because of the inbreeding.
Yeah.
So the beginning of the book I just found really boring. I mean, maybe if you're super into Egyptian politics and stuff, you might enjoy it more, but I wasn't that into it. But once she like became queen,
you keep wafting like nice old book smell over this way, and I'm really like, I'm digging it.
It does smell really nice.
Yeah.
But once she became queen, I think it became more interesting. But she also like grows up so fast, which you know, she'd kind of have to.
Right.
But still, it was like she went from being a like precocious child to like an adult.
Right.
All in all, I thought it was all right. I think I gave it 3 stars. And I will say though that it did prompt me to look up these people and find out what their actual lives perhaps were, what we know of them. And I found that really interesting, like reading about these people in real life. In real life, Oxenamon, after Tutankhamun dies, there's no record of her anymore. So no one's really sure what happened to her after that.
Interesting.
And so this book imagines a rather nice ending for her. In real life, people think probably she either married Ai or he killed her. But who knows?
2 questions. What did you say her name was?
Oxenamon.
Oxenamon. Isn't that the name of the lady in the mummy?
I thought that too. I looked it up and it's very similar, but not exactly the same.
Second question. Did you have a phase in your like middle school, early high school life where you were like really into Egyptian history?
Very briefly, because I remember I checked out a book about Queen Nefertiti from the library, I remember, and was like super into it in like 5th or 6th grade.
I had the same thing. I was like fascinated by it. I think probably like 6th grade, probably 7th grade maybe.
Yeah.
I was like really, really into it.
Yeah, but this book, it's interesting because a lot of the reviews on Goodreads are very good. It has a really high average rating, but a lot of them are people who read it as a child.
And haven't read it
since. And were like, I loved this book as a kid. And it's interesting to me reading it. Like, I wonder how I would have felt about it if I read it as a kid. Because like I said, it doesn't necessarily read like a kid's book to me. It's like, let me just read a random passage and tell me if you think this sounds like a children's book. With constant practice, the king's marksmanship soon regained its former accuracy, and the royal bowmakers were kept busy preparing elaborate equipment to suit his size and strength. A bowcase of exquisite design was filled with perfectly balanced weapons, and a chest was made to hold the jeweled daggers and bronze falchions, I don't even know that word, which were part of his military accoutrements.
Accoutrements? That's not a kid's book.
Yeah, like it does not read like a children's book at all to me.
At least not my dumbass when I was a kid.
I think it technically is one though.
Oh.
But I do think that like as a child, I think I had a better attention span than I do now.
I have ADHD, so it's really hard for me to tell. Because if I like something, I have all of the attention span for it. And I get like really obsessive. If I don't, then I don't.
Yeah. I think as a kid though, I didn't feel like, I think having this channel makes me feel pressured to finish books.
Fair. And as
Whereas
a kid,
with
you're like,
if I wouldn't like it, I would have just been like, not reading that.
Not reading it.
But I read things like, you know, Lord of the Rings as a child and like fucking loved it. And people like adults struggle to get through that book.
Get through it.
Because it's so dense.
But I think like as a kid, you kind of I think you're more able to like suspend disbelief. So like as a kid, when fucking Tolkien is going on and on about the goddamn lambus bread, you're like, oh yeah, please tell me. And you're like immersed in that whole world because you're a kid. And so you dive into that world. Whereas an adult, you're like, Jesus Christ, Tolkien, like, how long is this going to take? Because I have to do the dishes.
And I mean, there definitely were less distractions then too. And no internet.
Right.
I didn't even have cable TV or anything. No, I didn't have video games or shit like that to distract me.
Very basic stuff. Like I had stuff that was behind the times.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna look and see if I had any additional fun Plant City book.
Leave us with another quote?
Yeah, I was going to see. This character says to the man from Earth, "Wait, I'm curious. How do you manage to make so many women fall in love with you?" Kenji, which is his name on Ta, his name is Kenneth on Earth. Kenji thought for a moment. "Male charm, I guess." And she says, "And what is that?" And he says, "Above all, you must have confidence and a quiet threat about you. You must appear both dangerous and vulnerable, capable of both love and violence, a victim and a victimizer. And you must be able to balance attentiveness with indifference. A woman lures with tenderness, a man with thinly disguised brutality."
Oh yeah.
Because that's what
I
I look
love
for in a
me some
man.
thinly disguised brutality.
I tell you what I have. Thinly veiled annoyance.
So that was how our second challenge for
If you got it, read it.
Went.
Yup.
Not bad.
Not bad at all. No.
And just to clarify, because a couple people asked this on our last video, you don't have to do the challenges in order.
No. We're doing them
just-
in order
yeah.
for like ease of video making because
Right.
it's easier if we read the same challenge, like if we're going to talk about it, than if we were to like go different directions.
Right.
But like it's not a requirement of the challenge.
Right.
So do what you will.
So our next challenge will be reading a book that's not a typical novel, I believe.
Yes, it is.
So I've started on a short story collection already.
That's my plan, is to read a short story collection. I have been watching way too much This Is Us, and I have not been reading, so.
I didn't read much last month because I was just watching Bob's Burgers a lot.
It's a good show.
A
It's
lot
funny
of
as
Bob's
hell.
Burgers.
It's funny as hell.
It is. I love me some Bob's Burgers.
Love it.
I love Bob Burgers.
I love Bob Burger.
That's what Teddy calls it. Bob Burgers.
Bob Burgers.
Anyway. And this beer was really good.
So fucking good.
Super into it.
Yeah, I love this beer. I would totally buy this and drink it all the time.
Yeah. What was it called?
Frangelic Mountain Brown.
Frangelic Mountain Brown.
Get you some if you have it.
If it's still around. I don't know if it was like seasonal. Yeah, let us know how you're doing on the challenge.
Yes, how many have you completed? Are you going to try to do them twice like Sue is?
It's not going well so
or are
far,
you going to
so
hope
we'll
to get
see.
through them once like Megan?
Alright, so we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Bye.